right. Ending the stream. Do not want in the stream. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Oh, that was an awful start. Welcome, everybody, to another WineShark Wednesday. It is yours truly, the WineShark. I'm going a little bit later here, still desperately trying to dodge my sun situation until I get my custom fix for the custom windows. But I hope everybody's having a wonderful afternoon. Hope you're sticking in here with me. See John. Well, hello there to you too, Mr. John Carey. Good to see you again. And yeah, so everybody's having a nice week. It is midweek. It is definitely time for a glass of wine and some chit-chat about this and that. Just to give you summed up, I'm going to be out the next couple of weeks from the live show, but I'm trying to pre-record 2 shows to take their place. So that's the reason I didn't cast last week, and because I was underwater with trying to figure out how to do some things that I basically ended up throwing away anyway, because, hey, I'm not a video producer, I'm a sommelier. So anyway, those shows will be basically released at the same time. They'll be set as premieres, so you can join in. And I figured out a way that I can actually manage the quiz with little pauses in between, so you guys can take the quiz and quiz yourselves. But today we are going to talk about mass market wines worth trying. Oh, and hello to Betty and Mark. Well, hello to both of you guys from cool Southern California. Well, no jealousy here. Let me tell you, it's only 104 right now, and the humidity's ugly, and it's just stifling. So hey, we're all suffering through it. But such is life. What do you want to talk about this mass market thing, though? An idea occurred to me the other day while I was perusing for WineShark Wednesday selections, and that is, because I don't pre-select the wines, I tend to also avoid major labels unless there's an extra need. You know, there's a really good reason why. And I've done a couple of what I would call mass market wines over the course of the last couple of years, don't get me wrong. But there are several on the table that I know are fairly popular that I really think are worth going into. And so what we're going to do for the next probably 3 to 5 grocery store grabs is we're going to focus on some labels that you've likely seen pretty much everywhere. And we're going to basically substitute a new idea within the grocery store grab. That is, the grocery store grab is usually about being label focused, about reading the labels and using the label to determine whether the wine inside is something that we would like. What we're going to do now is also add in brand to that and say, well, with brand and the reliability and that mass market appeal, are there wines that no matter where you go, you're going to be able to find them, and they're going to reliably have a good product. I like bourbon, for instance, but when I go out to bars and and order some bourbon, depending on the type of bar that I'm at, their level of bourbon that they have can vary greatly. I tend to drink Maker's Mark as a staple because I know that Maker's Mark is a good quality bourbon that I can get pretty much anywhere at any bar in America. Okay. Even my beloved Wild Turkey, I usually can't get the 101 that I like rather than the 80 proof. But the example that brings up is that there are label examples that you can use about mass market brands that can actually come in a clutch, that if given no other choice, these might be good options for you to consider. And if you haven't tried them before, maybe now's the time, and the grocery store grab can help talk about them. So the key qualification I'm looking for, though, here is ubiquity. It really is about being able to be found nearly anywhere. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that puts us in a group of wines, in a Venn diagram, where quality and availability don't necessarily happen at the same time. There's a lot of Franzia out there that I wouldn't necessarily recommend as a, hey, go out and try this type of wine. So what I'm hoping to do is pick out some examples that are from my experience that I have found meet the quality, both quality opportunity and an availability opportunity at the same time. We're probably going to try and stay away from second labels, however. So I think we've done an example here in the past. We've used the Sterling Vintners collection. Sterling, one of my favorite wineries out of Napa, produces an excellent Napa Cabernet Sauvignon that is very much in the iconic style of the region. I think they usually retail, their flagship line runs somewhere between the $40 to $50 range. Not something you're going to see at every average grocery store. However, their Vintners collection, their VC line, which is their second label, is available broadly speaking. But that is an example where a wine, I think, is being targeted for that market. So I'm not necessarily going to dive into a lot of those. Although there are examples out there that are what I would call sneaky sneaky second labels. For instance, we've done Decoy, which is actually a Duckhorn product, and their second label. So I've done this in the past in kind of in a sidelong method, but we're going to kind of try and focus on brands where their primary brand is the one that you see at the mass market availability. So anyway, that's kind of what our theme is going to be over the grocery store grab for the next couple of weeks. We're going to keep it simple, keep it light. We're going to dive right into the quiz today, and then we're going to go talk about the grocery store grab because I think it's going to be a little longer than normal. So prepare your wine quizzy brains, and we shall draw for our Wine Wars wine quiz. Just to remind you, there are 5 categories of questions that we have in our wonderful game. Vine to Vino is the first, which basically talks about growing grapes, making wine, and the worldwide production of said grapes. We have Graposphere, which is grape varieties, their wines, and their geography. We have Wine Cellar, which is a storing, selecting, and tasting of wine. And then we have Wine and Food, my personal favorite. Cooking with wine, food and wine pairing, and wine service. And lastly, Cork Culture, wine people, business, arts, sciences, and trivia. So those are our categories. Here is our card for the day. Let me slide the cue card back in there. All right, here we go. From the Graposphere. Which is the minimum aging period required by law for non-vintage French champagne? Is it 15 months, 26 months, or 3 years? Okay, so NV, or non-vintage champagne. What that means is that it's unlike other still wines, this will not have a vintage year. So it's not going to be the 2020 champagne. It is a non-vintage, which means it's blended several years together. So is this the minimum aging for this, as required by the Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée du Champagne? Is it 15 months, 26 months, or 3 years? I don't rightly have 100% knowledge of this, meaning I don't have an answer in my brain that I know I'm confident in. I'm going to guess with a little bit of logic here, though, that it is 15 months. Oh, wait a minute, that doesn't really cross in multi-vintage year, so let's go more for the middle line. Let's go for 26. 26, final answer. I was right the first time, actually. It's 15 months. The minimum for vintage is 3 years. So, 15 it was. I shouldn't have second-guessed my first instinct. Generally speaking, you're going to want to have wines out as soon as possible if they're meeting your quality standards. There are several examples where aging longer is part of the feature of the wine, but not every wine really does that. So, all right, so 1 for me, 1 Mark got 1, John failed 1. All right, which red grape did California's Rhone Rangers enthusiastically bring in planting in the 1980s? Was it Syrah, Merlot, or Pinot Noir? Which red grape did California's Rhone Rangers, by the way, that's a knockoff on the Rhone Valley, a group of vintners that all had a passion for the grapes that were grown there. Rhone Rangers enthusiastically began planting in the 1980s. Is it Syrah, Merlot, or Pinot Noir? Go. This is a quiz to find out whether you know what types of grapes are grown in the Rhone. The answer is, of course, Syrah. Grenache Syrah Mourvedre, the GSM 3.0, is the big claim to fame for the Rhone, and the Rhone Rangers were very popular with that. These days, unfortunately, you can't. What is the anecdote that I heard? If you want to make a really fantastic wine in California that won't sell, make a Syrah, because unfortunately, Syrah got with the Shiraz boom of Australia, it got kind of worn out, and so we've moved on to the next big thing since then. It's a couple of generations out of fad, which is sad because good California Syrah is absolutely marvelous in my book. All right, true or false question. A relatively low fill level in a wine bottle or weeping around the cork may be signs of wine-damaging temperature fluctuations. True or false? A low fill level in a wine bottle or wheeping, as if it is to be dripping, around the cork may be signs of wine-damaging temperature fluctuations. Any questions? Yes, John, you did not get that one right. You need to think about the Rhone part of the question. All right, so true or false? Answer with this one is, oh yes, that is very true. Yes. When you see a wine bottle, I'm going to use mine for example here. If the wine bottle if the wine level was looking lower in the neck down here, and you see that the wine, it looks like it has basically been pushed out or seeping down past the cork, that's temperature at play. That's not a good sign at all, and a very easy flaw test. All right, another true or false one. True or false? Mold growing between the capsule and the top of a cork means the wine is corked and not suitable for drinking. Okay? Mold growing between the capsule and the top of the cork means the wine is corked, not suitable for drinking. I unfortunately dropped the cork, it seems, for the Louis Jadot. Otherwise, I would give you the example of what they mean. But the capsule, of course, is this foil thing that goes over the top, the cork being there. So if you have mold in between there, does it mean that the wine is corked? True or false? Again, everybody? Answer is false. The reason here being mold often accumulates simply because of the moist temperatures that wine is stored at. One of the things a sommelier or your waiter is going to do is going to, when they remove that foil, they're often going to have especially with an aged wine that might have that problem with mold in there, they're going to have a nice little wet cloth right by them. They're going to wipe that cork clean, going to remove it. They're going to smell the inside of it for cork taint, but basically mold on the cork is not it was not an on-site no-go, okay? So, yeah, that is a false example. Both everybody's got that one right, too. Looking good. All right. Which wine bottle is the equivalent of 2 standard bottles? Is it a Magnum, Imperial, or Methuselah? So this refers to the many styles and sizes of wine bottles. Fun fact, there's actually a slight different, I've seen a lot of lists of this out there on the intertubes. There are different names used for still wines versus sparkling wines, so it can get kind of confusing. The cool part is, generally speaking, they all have fun biblical names, like Nebuchadnezzar and Methuselah and Salmanasar, and these sound very epic. But the question here is, what is equal to 2 standard 750 milliliter bottles? Is it a Magnum, an Imperial, or a Methuselah? Answer is, of course, a Magnum. Yes, the other 2 hold 8 bottles, but are traditionally Bordeaux and Burgundy-shaped bottles, respectively. See, even bottle shape can change the naming process of your ginormous bottle of "Look at me, I'm awesome" wine. Yeah, Magnums are fairly common, however. Magnums of champagne, especially, but even Magnums of still wine you will find all over the place, and they are basically equal to 1.5 liters. So, all right, so everybody got that one right? Very good. All right, very well done, team. Okay, so as we said just a little bit before, it's the grocery store grab time. So the basic concept for the grocery store grab, as it has been throughout the show, is help getting the best value per dollar for wines found at non-specialty and non-big box retailers. Whether out of requirement, necessity, and or convenience you shop at the grocery store for wine, you're not likely to find a lot of able-bodied wine help there. So we rely on label-focused reading. This is just a good practice to get in general, but we rely on the label to tell us really what's in the bottle. And we skip past some of the marketing hype, we skip past pretty labeling. I mean, those are perfectly fine ways to just pick wines at random if all you care about is randomness. But if we're really looking to understand what's in the bottle before we try it, we want to read the label. We want to know where it's made. We want to know what types of grapes the wine is made from, if it's a blend, what percentages of what is in the bottle. And then we want simple, understandable flavor words that we can use to decide whether this is the wine for us or for the purpose that we're using. They get an extra bonus if they also do specific wine and food pairings. Those are always welcome. General pairings don't really get too much credit with me because they're, well, too general. So this week's Selezione is, again, probably a wine that I would say is more iconically associated with some of the first French wine a lot of people will get associated with. That is Louis Jadot. A very broad brand name, although this is a picture of the 2018 bottle. Mine currently is the 2020. But the label doesn't change. The latest label hasn't changed in my entire wine career as far as I know. The Louis Jadot keeps it very, very simple. They use this slightly yellowed color on the label, which gives it a little distinct feel. It's got that, it's very black and white, so to speak, very plain, but it has all the information that a traditional French wine label would have. It has, in large, bold letters, the region where the wine is from. It says the producer of the wine. Now, the one thing French wine labels don't generally have is they don't tell you what type of grape it is. But Louis Jadot's come a long way on their back part of their labeling. On the rear of this label, this actually meets the grocery store grab criteria. It says Beaujolais Village, appellation de région Contrôlée. Origin, an easy drinking wine made with grapes of the highest quality from the Beaujolais region of Burgundy. Grape, 100% Gamay. Flavor, a plump wine with notes of strawberry, black cherry, and spice. Pairing, hors d'oeuvres, mild cheeses, or poultry dishes. Okay, right there, that very simple, without marketing preamble, style of label is exactly what I'd like more winemakers to do. I mean, that right there is simple, plain, and a very transparent label for most French wine labels. Traditional French wine labels won't have half that information. Usually the back of the label is very, very simple and or marketing stuff that talks about their heritage and how awesome their house is. So this is a case of not only being a ubiquitous wine label. I have seen Louis Jadot in gas stations, in truck stops, in Walmart, in every single place I've ever seen wine. Louis Jadot is very often appearing. So it certainly qualifies in that mass market. The interesting thing is, they also qualify in my book as part of an example of reasonable level approachable quality. They're not the best of the category for what I would use of French wine, but they certainly start in the right place. So, this Beaujolais Village, the reason I selected this one in specific as opposed to the numerous other Louis Jadot options is because it is summertime, and we've been talking about summertime wines. Light wines, especially in the lighter red category, definitely meet our summertime needs, okay? So we don't want big, we tend not to want, at least when it's hot outside, big, heavy, plush wines. Although they did use the word plump for this wine. That bigger, higher alcohol, higher tannin style doesn't tend to run with summertime thinking. There are exceptions to this rule, especially when I'm doing stuff on the grill, but the general point is Gamay, Barbera are classic examples. You know, Pinot Noir, lighter styles of red are really much more fit, I think, for summertime use. And Gamay is easily one of my favorites for picnic time wines. So this is the example I chose. It's not only a ubiquitous label, it's a perfect choice for summer, and you can find it all over the place. So let's give it a little go here, and we'll talk a little bit about how this wine tastes. This wine is pretty well iconic of the style. The color on this wine is a nice, deep purplish garnet. It is fairly well clarified, meaning you can see almost through. It's not widely concentrated. Okay, on the nose, it has a very clean aromatic. It's right. It very much trends towards bright, dark cherries and berry flavors. There's a little hint of soil here too. I mean, if we're talking about classic French style, there's a little bit of stone that comes to the nose as well, which is really, you know, what you're kind of looking to learn about when you're starting in that world of French wine. I also want to say there's like maybe a little bit of, there's like a pencil shaving thing in there too, maybe a little wood of graphite, but easy, clean, it's not very assertive. It's very middle of the road when it comes to its aromatics. And on the palate, oh yeah, wine it's got a little hint of grip. A lot of Beaujolais and Beaujolais Village wines are made with carbonic maceration, meaning they're basically kind of self-crushing. They don't really, they don't really get in there and squash those skins and get those tannins wrung into the wine. And it makes them very relatively light and approachable. This wine is no exception. There's a little hint of grip around the mouth, and if you're a big red wine drinker, this is nothing. This is just a nice little hint of grip, and everywhere it goes, we've got this nice cranberry kind of bright dark cherry flavor. It is not sweet. One of the things I saw when I was looking up Beaujolais just to find some information. It wasn't necessarily a preview for the grocery store grab. I was checking something that I read while I was looking for the picture of this label, and that was some wine club, wine drinkers club or something that I say. There were the brief little comment in the slug on Google was talking about it being the Shirley Temple of wines, and that was slightly sweet because of chaptalization. And I'm like, yeah, that's some bullshit. That is completely not true. This is not a wine that I would point to people to say this is a sweet red wine. So I went to look for text sheets of various Beaujolais. Unfortunately, out of about a dozen tech sheets that I looked at, one of the pieces of information they don't tend to do, I'm guessing by tradition in this area, is they don't put RS or pH. Okay, they don't do that little technical thing of telling me the acidity and the residual sugar of the wine. They'll tell you all about process, boy. They said carbonic maceration, when it was harvested, the stones, the soils. They're very detailed, but they don't put that one piece on there. So it was kind of interesting to me because I couldn't find the specific data to back it up. Now, my years of experience with this, I'll tell you right now, this is not a sweet wine. There's no damn residual sugar here. It is a dry red wine. It is just a lighter style of red wine, and it's certainly no Shirley Dam Temple. It's where you want to start your red wine journey if you're coming from whites and sweeter styles, in my opinion, but it is not, don't expect it to be sweet. Okay, this is not some wine cooler or Shirley Temple BS. It is a fully grown up wine, and it's a great starting point. So the three questions we try to answer at the grocery store grab are, kind of basic. We're not doing a full wine review, but is it well executed? Absolutely. It's the reason it made this list. I know that Louis Jadot, generally speaking, if the wine is handled well, and I'm going to put a little asterisk and we'll come back to that. If the wine is handled well, the wine delivers a good, reasonable level of quality for the price that we pay. This, by the way, came in at about $14. Okay. Is it on style? 100%. If you were to talk about and read a description for Beaujolais Village wine, everything I said would hold true. This is 100% dead on traditional. And then, is it worth the price tag? Absolutely, especially if no other more quirky versions are available. If you're not looking to explore more of the, say, Cru Beaujolais, this Louis Jadot Beaujolais Villages is easily one of those things that you can start on. You'll go other places from here. You're going to find more complicated and interesting wines. Don't get me wrong. But this is certainly a place that meets that qualification of being a mass market wine worth trying. Now, asterisk, mass market and handling. This is a thing that really I think is the most dangerous part about dealing with mass market wines. That is, wine is only as good as as it has been handled throughout its life cycle. Okay, it's just like most other food products, right? If you had your frozen food get unfrozen and refrozen, it's probably not going to be very good. If your fruit was handled roughly and it comes out all bruised, it's not going to be very good. Wine has the same problems. Temperature has to be correct. Humidity, it can't be overly dry. The light strike, we've talked about these as dangers to wine before, but mostly temperature. The question today on the wine quiz was wonderfully predictive about what we're going to talk about, and that is the people who have the wine have to do two things. One, handling it from their distributor to them, and then where they put it within their shop, store, etc., has to be temperature stable. So it has to be, generally speaking, out of light. The other thing is smaller wine shops, smaller wine displays at places that don't sell wine. I mean, my local Exxon down the corner has a little tiny wine rack right next to the Bud Light and the White Claw and the seltzers and the Coke and the awesome Ethiopian cuisine, because the owners are Ethiopian and they're awesome. But they have a wine rack that sits there. The biggest challenge I think that a lot of the stores like that face is turnover. If wines, they tend to want to hold on to wines longer than they're good. This was purchased at a grocery store, so the turnover is generally pretty high. But you've seen on the show before, occasionally I've reached for a bottle of something known and I've caught it where it's just barely on the edge of being at its life cycle. Remember, 2 to 3 years for most modern wines is about all really you want to see in shelf life. They're not designed to age for years and years and years. As we've talked before, the wine has to be built to do so. So that's the other thing to watch out for. Be careful of how the wines are handled, and you're kind of rolling the dice the smaller and less turnover they have. This is why grocery stores are usually pretty reliable compared to, say, buying wine at a gas station. See also, gas station sushi joke, insert laugh here. But anyway, the whole idea of how they handle it is kind of roll the dice. But the second thing is be sure to check the dates. Make sure you're not getting a product that's out of it. A Beaujolais Village like this, again, like I said, they're coming out with them every year. They're not an aged wine. You shouldn't be drinking one that's more than 2 years old. Otherwise, it's probably going to be suffering from that heat problem we talked about earlier. So that's our first of our mass market wines worth trying. We're going to do a couple of others in the next 2 shows. Probably I'm going to continue this throughout the summer because I really like the theme. And I want to make it so that some of the wines here that we're talking about are those wines that literally, no matter where you're watching this, at least in the U.S., you're going to be able to find the wines that I'm talking about. They're going to be just every damn where. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments section down below. Helps us out on the channel, of course, to be able to answer your questions there. If you like what you see, share with a wine-loving friend. And don't forget to subscribe. And then, of course, if you'd like more information on our other options, support us over on Patreon. It helps me out personally, and it keeps the WineShark business kind of going. So I hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves. Until next time, I have been your WineShark. Cheers. I cannot wait to get these damn curtains over those things. It's just, I've got weird jagged lines above my head. I'm not sure. And now on my face, man, tell you, studio life is weird. Hope y'all have a good afternoon. Take care.